By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. It is Monday, the 19th day of September 2022. Clive Welsh here, inviting you to join me for the reading of our devotional thought for today, and it is entitled, A Sacrifice from the Heart. And our devotional thought is being read from the book, Truth for Life by pastor and author Alistair Begg. Today's devotional thought is once again, A Sacrifice from the Heart, and the verse today is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, which reads, By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. That's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4. Alistair Begg writes, What makes our actions commendable to God? Genesis 4 recounts the story of the first two children born in the world, Cain and Abel. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his sacrifice, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. That's Genesis chapter 4, verses 3, 4, and 5. Is it the sacrifice to whom the author of Hebrews referred when he tells us about Abel and his faith? First of all, he tells us that it was by faith that Abel offered a better sacrifice than his brother. It was through this sacrifice that Abel was commended as righteous. It would be easy to get lost in speculative theories as to why God accepted Abel's actions but not Cain's. But we need to stay focused on the facts that are given. And at the heart of what we're told, the fact is unequivocal. The action which God accepts was satisfactory, not because of their material content, but because they are an outward expression of a devoted and obedient heart. The reason why Abel's sacrifice was acceptable was not because he offered a beast as opposed to vegetables. The distinction wasn't between the sacrifices offered, but between the sacrificers themselves. John Calvin, commenting on this, notes that Abel's sacrifice was preferred to his brother's for no other reason than that it was sanctified by faith. This distinction occurs with what God communicates through the prophets. In Isaiah, for example, God said, Bring no more vain offerings. Incense is an abomination to me. New moon and Sabbath, and the calling of convocations. I cannot endure iniquity and solemn assembly. And that's Isaiah chapter 1, verse 13. It's as if God is saying, I'm not interested in all the bleating of the calves and the goats and the lambs. I yearn for obedience more than sacrifice. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. If you want to rely on these works as a means of making yourself acceptable to me, I want you to know it will never happen. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, it tells us in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. Our good works are a result of our acceptance by God, not a means to acceptance. They are our response to His love, not a means of securing it. If your actions, like Abel's, are ever to bring God glory and pleasure, it will be because they are an outward expression of our love for, devotion to, and personal faith in Him. So today, do not obey Him in order to be accepted by Him or to remain accepted by Him. It is faith that secures that. Equally, do not be complacently fall short by obeying Him because you are already accepted by faith. Instead, enjoy your place in His affection and let His pleasure be the motivation for your obedience. Indeed, let our pleasure be the motivation for our obedience. May we be found offering the sacrifices of praise to Him today, doing it from a heart that is responsive to His great love. Well, that's the reading of our devotional thought for today. Those of you continuing reading the Bible in a year, Amos chapter 7 through 9, and John's Gospel chapter 8, verses 1 through 29. Clive Walsh here. May the Lord richly bless you.